Chloe,
Karim,
Abby.
Taylor,
Dom,
and Katy. Welcome to the Heartwood Initiative.
We're from the Central School of Speech and Drama here in North London.
The world outside our windows has seemed a bit mad for quite a while now, and that's what we wanted to write about.
Climate change and politics. Everything seemed to be getting faster and faster, and then the world stopped.
The coronavirus is the biggest threat this country has faced for decades.
Now we're not at the Central School of Speech and Drama at all.
we are all over England, in Scotland and in Italy, stuck indoors at our computers and on our phones.
we don't want to ignore this when we go ahead with the project. The future's uncertain, so let's talk about it in 5 to 10 minute plays, which we will build throughout the coming weeks.
Hi everyone! We really hope that you enjoyed last week's workshop on building a world. This week we're going to be focusing on character, so those are the people who are going to live in the world of your play. We've got some great exercises lined up with Taylor, Karim, Dom and Abby.
We'd like to start by introducing you to some different types of characters who you'll recognise from plays, stories, television programmes and films. All of these characters can be boiled down to the role they play in your story.
The hero, also known as the protagonist or the main character. So this person has a specific goal and the whole plot of the play revolves around them trying to achieve this goal, so we as the audience follow them on their journey. Now, you might be thinking of Harry Potter from Harry Potter, or Shrek from Shrek, or Shrek from Shrek 2, or Shrek from Shrek the Third, or Katniss Everdeen from The Hunger Games.
And what about Shrek Forever After?
We don't talk about Shrek Forever After.
The ally. This is usually someone who has the same goal as the hero, and is usually the hero's friend. So Ron and Hermione from Harry Potter, Donkey and Puss from Shrek, or the Tin Man, the Scarecrow and the Lion from The Wizard of Oz.
The mentor. So this is like the fairy godmother of the story. This is someone who gives some sort of knowledge or power to the hero that's vital in them achieving their goal.
The villain, also known as the antagonist. This is the person who gets in between the hero and their goal. Think Voldemort from Harry Potter, Lord Farquaad in Shrek, or President Snow in The Hunger Games. Sometimes they might not even be a person. So for example, in Titanic, the antagonist is the sinking ship.
Those are just a few examples of the kinds of characters that you might want to have in your play. If you are interested in learning more, we've included some resources and links to websites at the bottom of this video. But for now, we'd like you to pause this video for 5 minutes and click on the link below, which is going to lead you to a quiz that will tell you which character you would be.
I got the hero. Okay, what did you get?
The villain.
Oh dear, better look next time. How about we go to Taylor with the first warm-up task?
Hi everyone, today I'm going to be working with you to create a really simple base that we can mould the rest of our characters on. I'm going to be doing this by first thinking about clothes. So, in a moment, I'm going to ask you to go and find a piece of clothing that you own. It can be anything that you like. It could be really simple or really jazzy, or it could even just be an accessory like a watch or a belt. I'm using this really simple pair of black jeans, but you can use whatever you like. So pause the video here and go grab something. Hello, welcome back. Hopefully you have your piece of clothing. Now we want to take a good look at our item. Consider what it looks like, what it feels like, how light or heavy it is, and we're going to write a really simple sentence describing what that item is. The catch is, you can't say what your item is. So I couldn't say trousers or jeans in my description. I'm going to give you 30 seconds and I'm going to be doing the task alongside you. But don't worry what you write, this is just to get us thinking. Your 30 seconds starts now. Welcome back. Hopefully now you have a short descriptive sentence, and now we're going to forget everything we once knew about that piece of clothing. It no longer belongs to us, it now belongs to our character. Read over your first sentence and consider what kind of character might wear a piece of clothing like this. What have you written in your description that might give away some clues about who that character might be? Some things to think about might be their age, where they're from, if they're good or evil, are they rich or are they poor? Have you got that kind of person in mind? If so, we're going to take another 30 seconds to write another short description of who that character might be. Your time starts now. Great, we're almost there. By now we should have 2 short, descriptive sentences about our character. The last thing I'd like us to write a short sentence about is how our character might feel on a day-to-day basis. We should think about our last 2 sentences and what that might have already told us about our character and how they feel. When they wake up in the morning, are they happy and raring to go? Or are they filled with apathy? Perhaps they resent other people and are filled with dread at the thought of going outside. Try and write another sentence, but if not, just write a few words that describe your character's emotions. Your final 30 seconds starts now. Fab! You should now have 3 simple sentences that you can use as a base for your character. We can use these as a starting point to build upon throughout today's workshop. See you soon!
Thank you, Taylor. That exercise was brilliant. I actually used an accessory to create my character, which is this, my favourite handbag. Joke from last week? No, I'm only joking. I actually used a hat that's on my head, and the character I came up with was an 80-year-old man who lives in a care home and has just recently lost his wife. Katie, did you have a go?
I came up with this character from my glasses, so kind of intellectual. I feel like maybe works in finance.
Right. Clearly lockdown is getting to some people more than others, Katie? How about we move to Corinne with the next exercise?
Hello everyone and welcome to this week's workshop. So for my activity today, I will be doing something a bit more practical and a bit more imaginative. So before we start, I'd just like to give you a small tip, which is do not overthink it. I'm someone who overthinks, and this is very much important for these first few activities, which are just quite quick, not to overthink and just to go with whatever you feel. So let's get straight to the activity. So you've just done an activity with Taylor. If you could please get that item of clothing with you now, I'll get mine as well. So I've chosen this item, it's a hoodie. I would like you to wear this item that you've chosen, or this accessory, just to get into character. Now I might underestimate my editing skills, but there we go. I apologise if I take this off halfway through the recording. It is quite warm here, so we'll see. So I've called this activity Wake Up as Your Character. So, I would like you please, with your item, to lie down if that's possible. You can do this sitting if you want, or you can do this with your legs raised, however you want to, preferably, as I said, lying down, but again, you don't have to. And I just would like you, if you want, to close your eyes and to breathe in and breathe out. Kind of get in a sort of calm place. You are at this moment sleeping as your character. And in a few seconds, you're going to wake up as your character. Now, how would your character wake up? Are they someone who would wake up with an alarm? Are they going to get up and, look forward to the day? Or are they like me and takes about 30 minutes to get up as I snooze my alarm? Or do they not have an alarm? This might depend on where you are in your world. So if you could please wake up, and what would your character do? What would their routine be like?
They could have some breakfast in the morning. What kind of breakfast do they have? They might shower beforehand. Or maybe they'll do some yoga, some sort of meditation. Or are they more of a sporty type? Or they do some kind of exercise routine? Or they could watch some TV later. Or are they someone who reads the paper more? These are just some examples. You can come up with your own.
It's just to give you an idea of what your character could do in the morning, because a routine can really give us a lot.
So I'm going to give you 45 seconds to write some things down. I'll leave these on the screen and the time starts now.
We're now going to slightly drift away from this waking up, and we're going to go on to certain scenarios.
How would your character react if they saw or maybe heard news about the coronavirus pandemic? Something about the lockdown. News about the climate emergency. How would your character feel if, let's say, the lockdown is lifted, or if it's extended? Or something related to the Extinction Rebellion. Would they agree with it, or would they disagree with it? Do they maybe agree with the message, but not how they're going about it?
Is your character a bit of a hypochondriac? Would they not trust when they go outside? Would they always keep their distance? If someone approaches them, would they start panicking? What kind of person are they?
Once again, these are just some examples. You can come up with your own. And I'm going to give you 45 seconds once again to write some things down, and the time starts now.
So I conclude my activity now, and I just would like you to know that this isn't set in stone. And it might be that you're probably not going to use this in your play, but this is just to give you, as the writer, a background of the characters so you can move forward when you start writing. If this activity didn't work, don't worry, do not discourage yourself. This is just a sort of warm-up activity to just start thinking and imagining about your character. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the workshop.
That was brilliant, Corinne. Thank you so much for that exercise. You know, I actually love to voice note as my characters. Chloe, do you want to hear what I've come up with?
Sure.
I went to work today, only to find out I'd been passed over for yet another promotion. I hate my job at the bank. Crunching numbers is no way for a dog to live. So I
Well, that's enough of that. I think it's time to move on to the main task with Abby and Dom.
So, what I have here, other than a lot of sunlight as the sun sets, is the Myers-Briggs personality test, which me and Abby have both done before. And it just tells you a little bit about your typical strengths and weaknesses after you answer a few questions. And that's the kind of thing that we're going to be looking at now with character, are the traits that people have. And more than that, the way that people prioritise their decision making. So I don't want to share too much of mine because it's so accurate that it feels slightly like looking into my soul. For example, I thought I wouldn't like it when I first did it because I'm quite a skeptical person and I didn't like being put in a box. And then I did it and it told me I'm a skeptical person, I don't like being put in a box, and I just decided to, maybe you're a personality type who has big dreams, but you struggle to achieve them because you don't have a very big attention span. And those are the kind of contrasts that make really interesting characters. For now though, I want you to choose a character, so it could be one that you've made today, or it could just be one that you're about to make up on the spot right now with me. And we're going to use this. Now this is Young's compass, and you can see there's an icon on each far end. There's a heart for emotion, a brain for intellect, a nose for sensation, and a lucky clover, that's for intuition. So does your character think with their heart or with their head? It's those kinds of questions that we're asking. If they're Doctor Who's companion in the TARDIS, do they check the oxygen levels before going out onto an alien world, or do they just run out and hope they can breathe when they get there? How do they make decisions? How do they experience the world? Let's do an example to get us started. So just off the top of my head, making this up as I go along, let's do a 1930s horse race. Not at all because I brought this hat to the recording. So on screen, you've got your 4 punters at this 1930s horse race, and each of them is going to be placing a bet on a horse that they think will win. So we have our heart, that's our emotive type, who might fall in love with a particular horse so much that it's absolutely the one that they just have to bet on. They love the way that it shakes its hair. I don't know, does it have hair? Do horses have hair? I don't know. I've never actually been to a horse race. This is all an illusion, the hat, everything. I guess they have like a mane. Either way, they love the horse. That's what we're getting at here. And their absolute biased love for this horse is why they're choosing it to win. Now we have brain, that's our intellectual, looking very dapper indeed. They'll be looking in the racing newspaper to find out which horses have been most on form recently, and they'll also be gathering some insider gossip from the stables just in case anything's changed. That is how they'll place their bet, by working out which horse it is most probable will win. Here, the nose, the sensation, who looks for physical attributes. He'll get close to the horses, watch them carefully, smell them, maybe touch them, figure out which looks the strongest and the fastest that way. You might notice a trend with the intellectual and the physical type, which is that they're both gathering their information from the outside inwards, whereas really our punter leading with their heart is all about what's happening on the inside. Here's another type that's doing that, down here, which is the lucky clover for intuition. Maybe they receive a vision, say, of number 2, and therefore they bet on the second horse, or they're inspired by the associations of its name. This punter goes off their gut feeling, and so, like the emotive type, they're gathering their information from the inside out, unlike the intellectual and the physical, who are doing it from the outside in. So maybe you're recognising some of these types. I, for one, can absolutely see my mum and dad in those, for example. So my dad is quite handy, and I would put him near the sensation end of the compass. My mum, every time the football comes on, will have her lucky socks on to make sure we win, so I might put her near the intuitive end of the compass. That said, unlike in the exercise, it's actually very rare we're going to get a character who's one extreme end of the compass. So, once you've tied yours to one particular trait, try seeing how they fare with the other types. Maybe, although our character is a clever clogs, they make all their most important decisions based on how it affects the people they care about. That would put them more over there than it does over here. So what about this line? I mean, we've said they're clever clogs, so maybe they really go out of their way to experience their surroundings, like Sherlock Holmes sniffing for clues in a crime scene, which would obviously put them down here. If we were doing Sherlock though, I'd put him way over here because he's not emotional, he detaches himself from emotions, so he can get the job done. So, let's do that again. Plot Sherlock Holmes on this compass, and let's talk through it. So, Sherlock Holmes is inexplicably brainy. He's definitely going to be over this section. He actually detaches himself from the emotions of his crimes so that he can't be distracted and that he can get the job done. Now lies the question of whether he's an intuitive type or a physical type. Maybe you want to mark him as an intuitive type. It certainly might seem that way. He does come up with possible scenarios as to how crimes could have been committed. That said, he's constantly arguing that this is something that he deduces through his physical senses. We read about him crawling around crime scene floors and sniffing for clues. So, I'm going to plot my Sherlock Holmes down here. So maybe our character, who we said was more emotional, actually is just acting like a clever clogs, and they don't know the answers, they're just guessing. They rely on moments of passing inspiration, like the intuitive type. And for me, I mean, I've started with the idea of a clever clogs, and now they're way over there, far away from what we might associate with that. Not only is that an interesting character, but it makes me reconsider what I first thought. Why does my character act like they might be over here, if they're really over there? Do they do it for attention? Do they just fancy themselves an intellectual? It's our job as writers to figure out how much of this stuff that we know is going on inside someone's head we let bubble across the surface in dialogue, in scenes, in our story.
Now let's try it with a slightly different character. So, we've plotted Sherlock Holmes down here, but where would, for example, Glinda the Good from Wicked fall? If you're familiar with the character, this one seems like a no-brainer, and maybe that's exactly the point. She's highly emotional and highly intuitive. Hopefully some of these examples give you an idea of how this compass works, and you'll be able to plot your character on it in just a second. For now though, let's try one more. From my favourite movie ever, let's do Edna Mode from The Incredibles. We know she's really not a very emotive person. And we do know she's very clever, so she's going to be plotted over here somewhere. Now it's the question of this line here. Although she works with fabrics and all those kind of things, she comes up with ideas on the spot, is hit by sudden inspiration. I'm going to plot her in this area.
So now it's your turn. I want you to plot your character on this compass. I'm going to leave it on screen, and then after you've paused the video, Abby's going to come back and carry on with you. Okay, so pause the video now.
Great, so this is a little drawing I did of the character that I created in Taylor and Crim's exercises earlier. So I've thought about where my character would be on Jung's compass, and I think she would go just there. Great, so now that we know a bit more about our character's personality, let's think back to last week where we created a world. I want you to go ahead and place the character that you've created into that world. For example, for my own world, last week I created the image of a forest. So now that they're in that world, I want you to think about what your character notices first. This could be anything at all. And think back to where you place them on Jung's compass to help you out. For example, in my world, my character is driven by her feelings, so she may feel quite cold by the forest winds, or she may feel drawn to the beauty of the colour of the leaves. Great, so now with that in your mind, I want you to think about what that tells us about your character. So what are their priorities? You might want to write these down, or you can just think about them in your head.
So now would be a good time to point out that if you're not a fan of the character that you've been working with, that's really fine. You're going to have plenty of time to change it if you do come to write a play. For now, though, I'm going to ask you to stick with it because we're going to try and put them in a story, or rather we're going to see what story grows out of them. Now, we are going to do a week on story after half term, but the reason I bring it up now is because the two are one and the same. Character and story, they're like an equation with a little equal sign in the middle. That's because character is how we experience the story, and we want the story to happen because of and be changed by our character. When I say this, I don't mean that if you want to write a play about climate change, that the character has to have made climate change happen. In general, this theme of world crisis can seem really impersonal. You think about climate change, I think about ice melting and forests burning and stuff, and that's not something that necessarily affects you personally. In a story about me, the biggest thing I could do to combat some of these things is donate online through a charity thing, which as nice as that is, wouldn't really be a very good story. We want our character to be involved in the action. We want to find a story that, like I say, is really linked with them. They get to change it, it changes them, character story, like that. Just like that. So then, how on earth do we make a play about something so big? The key here is to think of world crisis as the big umbrella term under which all these problems arise. Because of the COVID lockdown, schools had to close, people are now considered key workers and might feel at risk. Couples and family members are split apart by quarantine. They're tough topics to talk about, but that's exactly it. They bring about more of a response and more of a conversation than just coronavirus would. So what I want you to do in a second is pause the video and go on the Heartwood website. You should be here on the page. If you're full screen, just come out, and underneath the video you should be able to find a box called stimulus material. If you click in there, there'll be all sorts of information about climate change and coronavirus, listing some of these possible personal conflicts that come out of these big things. If you take 5 minutes to look at that, and then we're going to come back and work on it with Abby. Pause the video, off you go.
So hopefully you've had the chance to go through some of the source material provided. We're now going to put ourselves into the mind of the character. Pick an example from the list of possible situations you've come up with and write it at the top of your page. So for my character, I'm going to write that she's close to her daughter, but right now she's unable to see her. When you've picked the situation you want to use, we're going to write without stopping for the next 2 minutes, imagining ourselves as the character. Your writing doesn't have to be perfect, so don't worry about spelling mistakes, grammar, or even if you've repeated or maybe missed a word. If you're stuck on what you want to write about, you can think about these things: their worries, what they did when they woke up this morning, or what they want for dinner, or anything else you can think of. Remember, this writing is just for you, and we're going to do that together now. I'm also going to put a timer on the screen. Ready? Go. Great, so now that we've done that, you might have one line, you might have two, you might have a whole load of writing, but we're going to go through and highlight or circle or underline any wants that your character has. So for example, my character really wants to watch a film, but she can't because she can't master the television. So these are wants that your character has, but are unable to achieve. And we're just going to highlight them. So I really hope this has given you some tools in beginning to develop your character. This last exercise that we use is called a stream of consciousness, or some people may refer to it as free writing. It's very popular, but you may feel that you might need a couple of attempts at it, which I know I certainly did, and you can use it as many or as little times as you want in creating a character. You can even use it to begin to create a story.
So like we said, character and story are one and the same, so we're going to be back after half term with our session on story, and it's going to follow straight on from all of this. Don't worry if you don't have a character yet, you can replay the workshop, try some of the activities again with new ideas, just go away with some of the stuff you've learned. I'd say just give it a go in your free time. Writing is mostly thinking, it happens off the page in your head. Maybe just on your phone notes or in a notebook if you've got one, just writing down things that you think of throughout the day. And when you eventually come to sit down and write for half an hour, you should have all these ideas buzzing in your head.
That was brilliant, Dom and Abby. Thank you so much for that workshop. Now that's all from us this week. Next week we won't be having a workshop like this because it's your half term, but we will be having a special announcement on Monday the 25th of May.
Be sure to check back here for the announcement. In the meantime, please feel free to submit any work that you've completed throughout this week's workshop or last week's. That's all from us this week. Bye!
Bye! Thank you for watching this week's workshops. We hope you had fun.
We'd really appreciate your feedback, whether that's good or bad. And remember, although we are learning from this, these are your workshops. Say as much or as little as you want.
Follow the link on the screen and note that all submissions are completely anonymous, and you can fill out the Google form as many times as you want. And if you have any questions, you can pop them on there as well.
And if you have something you want to share with us from today's activities, maybe something you've drawn, a small passage of writing, you can upload that through the Oldham Theatre Workshop website if you want.
In the meantime, you can give us a follow on Twitter and Instagram at weare_Heartwood.
Thank you so much for watching and have a nice week. We are Heartwood. Till next time.